So we have seen working with GUI, right? So in GUI, I said about working with GUI development using Kinter. See, Trutil is there. We'll see Trutil at the end. Okay. So next, we'll just. So what is it? Another module you have is so what is that module is here? Hello. So let us see. So about NumPy, right? So here, ఏ మైక్ లేదు రావట్లేదు ఏది ఇట్లా ఉంటే వస్తుంది. హలో హలో ఏంటిది? నిన్న మౌజ్ నిన్న పెట్టినావు, ఇవాళ తీసేసినావు. ఏది మౌజ్? పాత మౌజ్ ఉంది మళ్ళీ. పనిచేస్తలేదు సార్ కొద్దిగా. అయ్యో లూజ్ ఉన్నది. లూజ్ ఉందంటే నేను అవుతుంది. అప్పుడు సౌండ్ వచ్చింది. ఫస్ట్ ఇంత ఉండే, అప్పుడు రాలే. ఎట్లా? హలో హలో ఇట్లా 20 సంవత్సరాల ఎవరికి చెప్తారు చెప్పండి. నిన్న కొత్తది పెట్టిండు, నేను నిన్ననే అన్నా నిన్న ఒక్కరోజు పెడతావు. నాకేం తెలుసు ఏడుంది బ్యాగ్. ఎందుకు పెడతా? నాకేం పని? నాకేం పని? అవును, నాకేం పని? నేను ఎందుకు పెడతా? ఇది కాదు నాదేది, నాది. నాదేది చిన్నది ఉంది, పాతదే ఉంది చిన్నది. పక్కలు తీసుకుపోయి అంటారు చూడు. Java certification version హరికృష్ణ చెప్తాడు ఏదో సొల్యూషన్ చెప్తాడు. So okay. So so yes. So there is a yeah. Now total is there that I'll tell you. थोड़ा small library है वो. So maybe at the end we'll see. So but we'll try to see some important modules, right? Okay. So there is a module which is called as here NumPy is there. So NumPy so there is a module, and what is the name of this module is NumPy. So NumPy, generally NumPy stands for numerical Python. Okay, NumPy stands for numerical Python. But generally, why use this NumPy? NumPy is not a language here. NumPy is a package. NumPy package. NumPy is one package, or it is called as which one? Library. NumPy is a package, or NumPy is what here? Library. Is a package or library. Okay. So what this library provides is, it provides certain functionality. So what NumPy provides? So I just already said for some other class here. Yeah. So this is what I said. So NumPy and Pandas, both are there. NumPy and Pandas are which library? So that is nothing but application programming interface. Is nothing but by calling the functions of this NumPy, okay, you can perform certain operations. So what is NumPy is? NumPy stands for numerical Python, and NumPy is a Python library used for working with what here? Arrays. So arrays are there. Okay, arrays. But see, list is not array. List is a collection, but array is not a collection, right? Array is an array. Okay, list is a collection. When you're talking about arrays, arrays are different than a list. List is a collection and array is not a collection. So NumPy is a Python library used for working with what here arrays. Okay, now where you can work with the vectors and what is that matrices. So when you're talking about arrays, arrays are having what dimensions. Arrays are having dimensions, like you'll say one dimensional array, two dimensional array, three dimensional array. Like that, you can also define what n dimensional array. So NumPy is a Python library used for working with what here arrays. So that is vectors and what is it matrices. NumPy provides the functions to work with what here linear algebra and Fourier transformation and what is that matrices. So you work with so many types of matrices in, okay, when you're working with matrix operations. Generally matrices are used for image processing. Even Fourier transformation is for what image processing. So NumPy provides the functions to work with linear algebra, Fourier transformation and matrices. NumPy is a Python library, is partially written in Python, but major part of the things are written in which language? C language. But most of the libraries in Python are written in Python only. Most of the libraries in Python are written in what? Python only. Okay. Okay. So here NumPy is a Python library, but I said most of the Python libraries are written in which language? Python language. But NumPy is a Python library is partially written in Python, and major part is written in which language? C language, right? So array is a collection of similar type of data, or what is that? Elements. See, list doesn't have any dimensions, but array is having what? Dimensions, right? So what is the difference? Sometimes I may ask you, like, what is the difference between array and what? List. Both are data structures only. Array is a data structure and list is also data structure. In array, data is stored in sequential order, and in list is also data is stored in what? Sequential order. But there is some major changes between the list and what? Array. Major differences between the list and what here? Array. So list is a collection of heterogeneous data elements. So list is a collection of heterogeneous data elements. But array is a collection of homogeneous data elements. Heterogeneous means a list allows what? Different types of data. List allows different types of data, but array allows what here? Similar type. And list doesn't have access or what is that? Dimensions. But array is having access or what? Dimensions. So list doesn't have access or what? Dimensions, but array is having access or what? Dimensions. So where you can create an array with one dimension, three dimension, like that. But in list, data will be stored as what here? Objects. In list, data is stored as objects. But in array, data will be stored as what? Scalar values. Okay, scalar values. Now I'll discuss this. But whereas in list, data is stored as what? Objects. But in array, data is stored as what? Scalar values. Okay. And list is a dynamic in size, but array is fixed in what here? Size. List is a dynamic in size, but array is a fixed in what here? Size. Because of list store data as objects, it occupies more space. Because of list store data as objects, it occupies what? More space. But because of array store data as a scalar values, it it occupies what here? Less space. So list is not efficient to process large sets of data, but it is efficient to process large sets of data. And list hold only objects type, but array hold scalar types as well as what? Object types. So these are some of the differences between array and what is that? List. So list is a collection of heterogeneous data elements, but array is a collection of what? Homogeneous data elements. List doesn't have access or what? Dimensions, but array is having access or what is that? Dimensions. So just try to understand this. So what is the meaning of heterogeneous and homogeneous, right? So what will happen when you're working with a list here? Now suppose if you take this as a list. So within the list, so there is a 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So what will happen when you create a list here? It allocates memory for how many addresses? 5 addresses. First it allocates memory for 5 addresses. Then after that it will create how many objects here? 5 objects. So this list is holding the data, reference of the data, reference of the data. Means list doesn't hold the data. List is having the address of what? Objects. List doesn't have the data. List is having a reference of which one? Object. List is having a reference of object. List is having a reference of object. Okay. So when you create a list, what will happen first? So it reserves memory for how many addresses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It allocates memory for how many addresses here? 5. So this location is having the address of first object, and this is having the address of second object. This is having the address of third object. This is having the address of what? Fourth object. This is having the address of what? Fifth object. Suppose each address is taken how many bytes here? 4 bytes. So there is a memory reserved for how many addresses? 5 addresses. So it will take how many bytes? 20 bytes for which one here? Addresses. Assume that each object size is 10 bytes. Assume that if each object size is 10 bytes, now total how many objects are there? 5 objects. Then how many bytes here? 50 bytes. Now 50 plus 20. Total how many bytes will it take to store 5 values? 70 bytes. For storing 5 values, it takes how many bytes? 70 bytes, because assume that 20 bytes is for which one? Address. And each object size is how many bytes? Assume that 10 bytes. Then 5 objects is how many bytes? 50 bytes. Then 50 plus 20 is how many bytes? 70 bytes it will take. But when it comes to the array, like the array is similar to array in C language. Suppose in C language, when you say integer a of 5, so integer will have a data size or not? Yes. The size of the integer, assume that 2 bytes. Then 5 integer, it takes how many bytes? 10 bytes. And a is a pointer. Now this takes how many bytes? 2 bytes. Now total how many bytes it is taken? 12 bytes. Total how many bytes it is taken? 12 bytes it is taken. Total number of bytes are here 12 only, because each integer, so array itself contain what? Value. It means data is represented as what? Objects or individual values? Individual values. Data is represented as individual values. It means your list doesn't have a value. Your list is having address. But here array is having what? Value. Doesn't have what? Address. It means you are reserving memory for what? Value. But here memory is reserved for what? Address. And that address is the address of which one? Object. So there is a separate memory allocated for address and there is a separate memory allocated for object. And your list is having a reference of this particular object, right? So if you take this is an array and this array is having 1, 2, 3. Now you allocated memory for how many values? 5 values. So what will happen? Each integer value size is 2 bytes. If you take 2 bytes, then it takes how many bytes? 10 bytes. So it means array support the data type as well as size. Arrays provide the data type along with what? Size. But in list, I cannot define the size of the integer, right? Is the size of integer is unlimited or not? Yes. But here size is fixed. I can define the size. The size of value. Suppose if I want to store the value of 1 byte, I can define the size of integer. So I can define the size of integer is 1 byte. Then it will take how many bytes? 5 bytes only. If the size of integer, if I'm saying 2 bytes, then it takes how many bytes? 10 bytes. If the size of integer, if I define 4 bytes, then it takes how many bytes? Like that, 20 bytes. So size can be defined here, but here size cannot be defined. The value size cannot be defined, but here value size can be defined. Okay. So how can you, now this is some of the differences between the list and what is that array. So arrays are more efficient in processing large amount of processing which one? Large amount of data, because arrays will occupy less space. Array will occupy the less space compared to which one? List. So that's the reason most of the data science related things you will try to manipulate it using what? Array. Even though if the data is stored in list, you convert that list into what? Array. Now to work with the NumPy, you just write pip install. What is that? NumPy. Or suppose when you download and install which one? Anaconda. Anaconda is a Python distribution which provides what it provide? Python software, and it will provide data science and machine learning libraries. Like automatically it will install like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, ScientificPy, TensorFlow, scikit-learn, like this. It will provide number of libraries. Along with that, it also provide which one? IDs. What are the IDs? It will provide Jupyter and one more is what? Spider. So it will provide 2 IDs. One is Jupyter and one more is a Spider, right? So you can download Anaconda from this. Now we'll be working with which one now? Jupyter Notebook. So what is a Jupyter Notebook is? Jupyter Notebook is a web application or internet application. The Jupyter Notebook is a web-based interactive computing platform. The notebook combines the live code, equation, narrative text, as well as what? Visualization. See, what is a notebook? A notebook contain what here? Code. What notebook contain? Equations. You can write it, and you can also provide some text document, and it is also contain data visualizations. Everything you can put inside what? A notebook. So most of the data science people, they'll be working on which one? Notebook. So working with the notebook is nothing but working in which mode? Interactive mode. Working with the notebook is nothing but working in which mode? Interactive mode. But this Jupyter notebook you'll get automatically when you install which one? Anaconda. This Jupyter notebook you'll get it when you install which one? Anaconda, right? When install the Anaconda, with the Anaconda, what you'll get? Jupyter Notebook. Okay, is a web application or internet application, and the Jupyter Notebook is a web-based interactive computing platform. The notebook combines live code. What is the advantage of web application is multiple people can work with what? Web application. Suppose multiple people can use the same notebook. One notebook can be shared by how many people? Number of people. That is the advantage of which one? Notebooks. Like Google Colab is there. Even Google Colab is also what here? notebook. So already I installed Anaconda, but with the Anaconda, with Anaconda already. Okay, so I installed what is that here? Jupyter. Okay, Jupyter. What here? Notebook. Jupyter notebook is there. So just open. So this you'll get it when you install the Anaconda distribution, right? Okay, this you'll get it when you do Anaconda distribution. Yeah, it's just trying to down start up. Okay, now this is you execute the code within the browser, right? Okay, now there will be a server here. So this is a Jupyter server, right? This is a server. This is called as Jupyter server. And this is now you execute the code in a browser. Now this is web-based application, right? Web-based application or web application. Whenever you are saying it is a web application is executed within what? Browser. So web means what always you interact by using what here? HTML. This is one web page or not? Yes. This is a web page and you interact with the UI. This is called as UI, user interface. And this user interface is developed in what? HTML. And you input something here and you just submit. You are sending this request to which one? Server. So what server it is? Jupyter server. And this Jupyter server execute this code and give the response back to which one? Client. Okay. So first thing what you have to do is create a new, what you have to create a new notebook. You are creating a notebook by using which version? Python 3. You are creating a notebook by using which version of Python? Python 3, right? Okay. Now notebook is open. Now you can give some name. Okay, I just given the name here. So Python 11 name, right? So the notebook contains some cells. This is a cells, right? Now you find two types of cells. One is a code cell and one more is a text cell. Code cell where you can write the code and execute. But when it comes to the text cell, you cannot write the code. Okay, it is only for writing what? Equations, documentation. You'll write it by using which one? Text cell. But this is called as, now you can see the code is there. Now this is a code cell. And if I say markdown, now this is not this is not a code cell. This is which cell here? Text cell. Okay. Now I'm just writing, this is my, okay, this is my first, this is my first notebook. Okay. I just write, this is my first notebook. And after writing, this is my first notebook, what will I do? I'll try to insert. I try to insert what? Another cell here. So this is another cell I inserted, but this is which cell? Is it a code cell or text cell? Text cell. Now, if you want to write the code, you can write inside this cell and you can just say, so hello, some Python, right? And after this, you just click on which one here? Run. So one cell can have either one line of code or more than one line. You can press enter and you can say A. So A equal to integer of input. Enter what here? First number. And B equal to integer of input. I'm saying enter which number here? Second number. And C equal to A plus B and print A, B and what? C. So just click on run. Now enter first number Second number, you can see the result of A, which is 10. The value of B is at 20, and the value of C is what here? 30. Okay. Now the value of A is a 10, and the value of B is 20, and the value of C is what here? 30. Right? Yes. Now you can import here. Import what is it? NumPy. Import NumPy as what is that? NP. Import NumPy as a NP, right? So it means, okay. Now this is an alias name. You are trying to import this library with an alias name. And what is the name of this here is NP, right? So NumPy as a NP. Now this is called as alias name. NP is what here? Alias name. Okay. You are importing this library with this particular alias name. Yes. Okay. So then first thing in working with NumPy array is creating which one here? Array. Creating an array. So array. So the array can be one dimensional array. So the array can be what here? One dimension array. This is one dimensional array. This is called as one dimensional array. So the array can be what here? Two dimensional array. So this is a two dimensional array. Okay. Now array can be three dimensional array. This is one dimensional array and this is two dimension. So two dimension means even I can represent as a matrix or I can write like this. Now dimension represent a depth of the array. Now this you can call it as, okay, this you can call it as which array? Two dimensional array with how many rows and how many columns? Three rows and three columns. Now this you can call it as which array? Two dimensional array. Suppose if it is a three dimensional array, this is called a three dimensional array. Now this you can call it as a depth. Number of nesteds. Based on the number of nesteds, so that you can call it as either one dimension or two dimension, or that can be called as which one? N dimension. Okay, N dimension. So here dimension represents what? Depth of the array. Dimensions represents what here? Depth of the array. This is one and this is two and this is what here? Three. So you can say this is 0, 0 and what is that? 0. And this is 0, 1 and 0 and then what is that? 1. So but in this case this is 0 and what is that? 0. Now this is having only one subscript. This is having how many subscripts? Two subscripts, and this is having three subscripts. If it is a four dimensional array, you have how many subscripts? Four. So the array can be either one dimension or the array can be what? N dimension. Array can be either one dimension or the array can be what here? N dimension. So NumPy is used to create arrays, and the array object in NumPy is called ND array. NumPy is used to create what here? Arrays. The array object in NumPy is called what here? ND array. What is the name of the data type? ND array. What is the name of the data type here? ND array is the name of the data type. ND array is the name of the data type. Okay, so what is that? ND array is the name of the data type. So ND array is a data type or class which represent which object here? Array object. Like list class is used for representing list object. Set class is used for representing set object. Okay, like that. ND array class or ND array data type is used for representing which object? Array object. So there is lot of projects you can do it. Okay, lot of projects you can do in Python. Simple projects you can develop in Python. I'll just tell you like how this where these projects are. Lot of projects are there. But anyway, let us see this array now. ND array class is used to create array object in what? Python. And NumPy provide various functions for creating what? Array. Lot of functions are there for creating which one? Array. Lot of functions are there for creating which one? Array. So there is a function called which one? Array. You can create directly using which data type? ND array. But these functions will return which object again? ND array object. It means instead of using ND array directly, I'm using these functions like array function. Okay, there are a lot of functions are there for creating which object? ND array object. So what is the first function you have? Array function, and this function create which object here? ND array object. So I said, whenever you create an array, the array will provide which one? Data type. Because array is a collection of similar type elements or different type? Similar type. Array is a collection of what? Similar type. So here you are trying to define what? Data type. So data type is an attribute of which one? Array function. Array object which define the data type. The default type of array is what here? Object type. But there is a number of data types out there. So NumPy provides the following data types, like these are called which data types? Integer data types like int8. Now you want each value in array should be allocated 1 byte. Then use a data type called which one? Int8. If you want each value in NumPy should reserve of 2 bytes, then you'll use what? Integer 16. So that will take how many bytes? 2 bytes. And if you want the array should reserve memory of 4 bytes, then use what? Integer 32. And if you want the memory to be reserved of 8 bytes, then use what here? Integer 64. Now always you choose the size based on the value size. Suppose integer 8 means 1 byte 2 to the power of 8. 2 to the power of 8 is nothing but 256. Now that is from minus 128 to plus 127. Minus 128 to plus 127, that is, now that you can call it as how many values here? 256 values. So there is a float data types out there, like float 16 is there, and float 32 and float 64. Now float 16 will take how many bytes here? 2 bytes. And float 32 will take how many bytes? 4 bytes. Now float 64 will take how many bytes? 8 bytes. Now suppose if you want to reserve the space of 2 bytes float, then use what here? Float 16. If you want to reserve the value for 4 bytes float, then use what? Float 32, like that. Now there is also a complex data types like complex 64 and complex 128. Now complex 64 is takes how many bytes? 8 bytes. So within that 4 bytes are reserved for real number and 4 bytes are reserved for what? Imaginary number. But in complex 128, how many bytes it will take? 16 bytes. So that is nothing but 8 bytes are reserved for, yes, a real number, and 8 bytes are reserved for imaginary. So what internally your Python uses is like this complex internally uses structure. Like in C language, you have what? Structure. So allocate memory for how many values? two values. One is real and one more is what? Imaginary. So there is an unsigned integer data type and you have an unsigned integer 8. An unsigned integer 8 takes how many bytes here? 1 byte. It means all these are which one? Signed value. Signed means positive and negative. So this will accept the values of plus or what is that? Minus. But if you want to reserve memory for only positive values, unsigned means without sign. Without sign means it takes only which values? Positive values. Then you can go for unsigned integer 8 will take how many bytes? 1 byte. Unsigned integer 16 will take how many bytes? 2 bytes. Unsigned integer 32 will take how many bytes? 4 bytes. Unsigned integer 64 takes how many bytes? 8 bytes. Unsigned integer 8 will take how many bytes? 1 byte and 16 is 2 bytes and 32 is 4 bytes and 64 is what? 8 bytes. So for that you are using unsigned integer data type. So that this data type also represented using a single character, right? If I want to reserve memory for integer with 1 byte, I can say I8. I8 means what? Integer 8 bytes, 8 bits, right? Which is nothing but 1 byte. You can say IFU means what? Unsigned, and S is nothing but what? String. So whenever you create a array, you define. Whenever you create an array, you define how much size is, right? I'm trying to create an array by saying A. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to write like this. So import NumPy is what here? NP. And after that, I'm writing A equal to NP dot. I'm just creating an array. Okay, I just create array and I try to print what is array is having. Right now, run this. And once you run this, it is given what here? Type error. So type error means using array function, I cannot create an array without defining what? Values. I cannot create an empty array using which function? Array function. I cannot create an empty array using which function? Array function. Now it is saying array missing required argument called which one? Object. It means whenever you are creating an array, you must create an array by representing some data. So what is the syntax of this array? Followed by what? Object and data type and order and end dimension. Order and what is that? End dimension. So here object is an iterable. Object is nothing but here iterable or sequence, which is used to construct what here? Array. What is object? Object is an iterable. Now I have to give the object. So what this object is? Iterable or sequence, which is used to construct what? Array. And second one is a data type. And this indicates a data type of which one? Array. And so there is a order is there, and order can be a C or one more is what? F. So it is nothing but order of reading it, order of reading or order of storing. One is called as a C language and one more is what? Fortran language. Two orders are there. One is a C language is there and one more is what? Fortran. Now C is nothing but which order here? Row major order. It means, for example, if I want to, if it is like this, so there is a, assume that there is a matrix which contain 3 rows and assume that there is a matrix which contain 3 rows and 3 columns. Now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Suppose if it is a C, which is called as row major order, so the traversing is done like this: 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and one more is what? 7, 8, 9. So this you can call it as which order here? Row. If it is F is nothing but column major order. Suppose if you see this is a matrix which contains some 3 rows and 3 columns. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. So how it is read? Column major means first it will read 1, 4, 7, and then 2, 5, 8, and then what here? 3, 6, 9. This is the order in which you read the data. Okay, so one is a row measure. Now the default is which one? Row measure, which is followed by which language? C language. This is a default. Default is a row measure, which is followed by which language? C language. Now you can also use a column measure order also, right? So it followed by n dimension. How many dimensions? So this specify minimum number of dimensions of output array. Minimum number of dimensions of which one? Output array. So that is represented by using which one? N dimensions. But using array, can I create an empty array? No. I need to define the values, and these values you represent it with one iterable. Now I'm trying to use a list. I'm trying to use one list here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Means I'm creating an array using what here? List. I'm using an array using a list. Now you can see this is an array. If you want, you can see the type of. Now what is a A is? Now A is a type of which one? ND array. What is the name of the class here? ND array. So this array object is which type of object here? ND array. Now this array is having some properties. So what are the properties of this array is? Now I want to know what is the data type of this array. So what is the data type of this array? Integer 32. 32 means how many bytes? Each value take 4 bytes. Each value takes how many bytes? 4 bytes. But I don't want this array should take each value to 4 bytes, because one doesn't require 4 bytes. For storing one, I don't require how many bytes? 4 bytes. For storing one, at least I require how many bytes? 1 byte, right? Then what will I do is I'll try to define the data type, saying np dot integer what? 8. Now once I write integer 8, now each value takes how many bytes? 1 byte. Each value takes how many bytes here? 1 byte. Now total how many bytes for this array? 5 bytes. It occupies how much space here? 5 bytes. Because each value is how many bytes? 1 byte. That means large amount of data can be processed easily by occupying less space or more space? Less space. This occupies what here? Less space. Yes. So this doesn't occupy more space. This occupies what here? Less space. And that you are trying to define it by using which one here? Data type. So what is the size of each value here? 1 byte. And 1 byte is equivalent to how many bits here? 8 bits. Okay. Not only that, the array is also having some more attributes. Like there is an attribute called what? dimensions. So there is an attribute called dimensions. Okay. So this is how many dimensions it is having? Only one dimension. Okay now. Right. So one dimension. I want to know how many values are there in the array that I can find out by using which one? Size. So how many values are there in the array? 5 values are there. And I want to know what is the shape of this particular array. Now this is having 5 values. Suppose if it is matrix, it defines number of rows and columns. Okay, but this is having, is it one dimension or multi-dimension? One dimension. Because of that, it is shown how many values are there? 5 values. How many values are there? 5 values, right? So that you can call it as which one? Shape. That is number of rows and columns. Now size will return the total number of values, and dimension return the dimension of the array, and D type represents the data type of which one? Array. Data type of a array. Okay. Now these are some of the attributes of which one here? Array. Now array, so array function you are using it for creating which object? Array object. So this array can be either single dimensional array. This array can be either single dimensional array, or this array can be what here? Multi-dimension array. It can be single dimensional array, or it can be what? Multi-dimension. So how can I create a two-dimensional array? By using nested list. So within the list, I'm creating another list. So this is a first row, and this is a second row, and this is what here? Third row. Now each row is having how many values here? 3 values. Each row is having how many values? 3 values are there. So this first row is having 3 values, second row is having 3 values, and third row is having 3 values. Now you can just print this array called B. Okay, now I want to know what is the dimension of this array. So print B dot, what is that? N dimension. Okay, this array is which dimension array? 2-dimensional array. I want to know what is the shape of this array. I'm saying B dot shape. So how many rows and columns are there? 3 rows and 3 columns. I want to know how many values are there in this array. You can use what? Size. So how many values are there in this array? 9 values. But how many rows and columns are there? 3 rows and 3 columns. And this is which array? 2-dimensional array. Now you can also define n-dimensional array. Now dimension is nothing but nested. How many nesteds if you write it? So that defines what here? Dimension. How many nesteds you write it? That defines what here? Dimension. So np dot array. So I'm creating an array with what here? List. So within the list, again there is another list. So having what nested are there here? 3 are there. 3 nested are there. Okay, this is 0, 1, and this is what here? 2. Suppose if I'm trying to say print C dot n dimension. If I say C dot n dimension, you can see it is which dimension? 3 dimension. For example, this is how you logically represents. For example, I want to represent, okay, I want to represent the details of, okay, I want to represent the details of 2 classrooms. 2 classrooms are there, 2 classes are there, and each class having some 3 students. Each class is having how many students? 3 students. Now this is one more dimension. So each class having how many students? Each class is having 3 students. Now this is a first class and this is what here? Second class. So 3 students are there. Now each student is having some number of subjects. Okay, assume that each student is having 2 subject marks. Each student is having how many subjects here? 2 subjects. Now this is another array. So this is one more array, right? Now each student is having 2 subject marks. This is first subject and this is second subject and this is what? Third subject. And this is having 2 subject marks and this is 2 subjects and this is 2 subjects. Now this is a second classroom. First student is having again how many subjects? 2 subjects. Okay, 2 subjects and then second student is having how many subjects? 2 subjects. This is also having how many subjects? 2 subjects. And the third student is also having how many subjects? 2 subjects. Now total how many dimensions are there here? 3 dimensions. So 3 dimensions. Now suppose first class, this is a first class and this is what here? Second class. First class, first student, second student and third student. Second class, okay, second class, first student and second student and third student. And first class, first student, first subject marks, second subject marks. First class, second student, first class, third student, first subject marks and second subject. So this you can call it as multiple dimensions or not? Yes. 0, 0, 0 means first class, first student, first subject. 0, 0, 1 first class, first student, second subject. 0, 1, 0 means first class, second student, first subject. And 0, 1, 1 means first class, second student, second subjects. So it means I try to organize this by dividing into how many dimensions here? 3 dimensions. This is 3 dimensions, right? So what dimension represent? The depth of the array. What is the dimension represents here? Depth of the array. Now that is represented by using which one here? Dimension. That is what exactly the meaning of dimension, right? So try to understand. But what is the shape of this array? What is the shape of this? Okay, 2, 3 and 2. What is the shape? 2, 3 and 2. 2, 3 and 2. 2, 3 and what? 2. That is the shape here. 2, 3 and 2. How you represent this? For example, I want to represent this. How can I represent this? I represent like this. Suppose student. This is student, right? Suppose student equal to numpy dot, or first we'll create list. So this is a list which represent data, right? Now first student, how many classrooms are there? 2 classrooms. Okay, now this is, so this is a first classroom, and this is what here? Second classroom. And within the first classroom, how many students are there? 3 students. And each student is having how many subjects here? 2 subjects. Okay, so I'm trying to represent like this 40 comma 50. See here, I just write here 40 comma 50. So 40 comma 50 and 50 comma what is that? 60. Now you can see 1, 2 and one more is what? 3. Okay. I think one more. So what I've written here, now assume that this one is, and let us convert this into what? Array. NP dot array of which one? List 1 and E dot n dimension. So this is which dimension here? 3 dimension. And print E dot, what is it here? Shape. Now you can see 1, 2 and 2. Because I've taken, what is it? How many students I've taken? 1, 2, 2 means I've taken how many students here? First classroom, how many students? 2 students. And each student is having 2 subjects. I've taken 2 students and each student is having 2 subjects. But in this case, 2, 3 and what is that? 2. 2, 3, 2. Right? Because 2 classrooms, 3 subjects and, sorry. 2 classrooms and 3 students and how many subjects? 2 subjects. So this is divided logically into a number of rows and what? Columns. This is divided logically into number of rows and columns, right? So this is how you represent it. So data type, I said no, data type is an attribute of an array which define data type. The default type of an array is what here? Object. Now NumPy provide these data types, I said. Okay. Yes. All these are the data types provided by which one? NumPy. But I said no, array can hold which type of values? Similar type. But what will happen if I create an array? So np dot array, I'm creating an array by storing 10, 20, 30, 1.5. So I just write here 1.5. So but array is a similar type or different type? Similar type. Means will it convert all these values into one type or not? Yes. It will convert all these values into one type. It will convert all these values into what? One type. Now it's converted into which type? Float type. Because in integer and float, which one is a broader type? Float. In integer and float, which one is a broader type? Float is a broader type. So it convert all these elements. It convert all these elements or items into which type? Floated. Suppose there is an array. Okay, there is an array which contain, so the elements of type integer. Now 30 comma within double quotes. I'm just writing here NIT or some Python. So Python comma, I just write here 1.5. What is it? Array is a similar type or different type? Similar type. Then it will convert these values into one type or not? Yes. So it will convert into which type here? String type. Because we cannot convert Python to integer or float. But we can we convert 10 to string? Yes. Can we convert 20 to string? Yes. Can we convert 30 to string? Yes. Can we convert 1.5 to string? Yes. But can you convert Python to integer and float? No. So in integer and float and string, which one is broader type? String is a broader type. Now once you print this B value, and this is a value of B, now you can see 10 is represented in single quotes or not? Yes. So 10 is a string and 20 is a string and 30 is also string and Python is there and one more string is what? 1.5. 1.5 is there, right? So, but array, is it holding similar type or not? Yes. Now, if I see the data type of this array B, so B dot data type, so B is which type of, it is unsigned 32. is nothing but is it a string or not? Yes. Yes. Then next is you can create an array in different ways. You can create an array in what? Different ways. Now you can see, for example, so there is implicit conversion is there and there is explicit conversion is there. For example, I'm trying to create an array. I'm trying to create an array like this. np.array. So there is a list which contains 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, comma, within single quotes, I write what? 60. But actually 60 is a integer represented as what? String. Then what will happen if I print the C here? Will it convert all these values into strings or not? Yes. Now all the values get converted into what? String. All values are converted into what? String only. So this integer is converted to string, and integer 30 is converted to 40 string, and 50 is also string. But I want to convert this string into which type? Integer. But can I convert 60 to integer or not? Yes. I cannot convert Python to integer, but can I convert 60 to integer? Yes. Then what will I do is, I'll try to define the explicit conversion by saying which data type integer, I take 1 byte. Then what will happen? np dot. Now integer 8 now is converted all these values into which type? Integer type. But suppose if I'm writing some, assume that some xyz, is it possible to convert this xyz to integer? No. So the string should contain which type of value? Integer value. Within string should have which type of value? Integer value. But is it xyz is an integer? No. If you run this, generated which error? Value error. So invalid literal for integer with the base what here? 10. So you required an integer value with the base what here? 10. So here I have to write some value, some 8. Then will it work or doesn't work? Work. Now this is how you are trying to create an array. Okay, now you are creating array by using different types of values. Now what is the dimension? Dimension defines the depth of the array or nested. How many nested arrays are there? That is represented by using what? Dimension. And what is the shape of the array is, a shape defines the number of rows and columns. And what is the size of the array is, the size will define the total number of elements. The size will define the total number of elements exist within what? Array. And what is the data type represents here? The type of elements held by which one? Array. But array can hold same type of elements or different types of elements? Same type. So data type. Now D type, type of element held by array are the same thing. You can say array data type. Array data type is represented using which attribute? D type. Now this is how you display now. So a dot n dimension define the depth of the array and number of rows and columns, and the data type hold by what? Array, and total number of elements exist in what? Array. Item size is there. There is one more is there. What is that? Another one is, if you want to know each element in the array hold how much size, how many bytes are reserved for each element, how much size it is taken or how many bytes it reserved, then you can use one attribute. What is that? Item size. So each value in this array takes how many bytes here? 1 byte. Okay, each value in this array takes how many bytes here? 1 byte. Now total number of bytes it takes how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that you can find out by using one attribute called which one? Item size. So that will return the size of the element, right? You can also create a matrix, but how you are creating a matrix? You are creating a matrix by using which one here? Nested list. But whenever you are saying a matrix, each element in matrix is having a two subscripts. One is a row and one more is what? Column. But see here, either order is a C or order is F. But when you read it, is it read in the same order or not? Yes. But this is used when you iterate, not by using index. If you are using iterators, if it is a C, it will read in which order? Row major order. If it is F, it will read in which order? Column major order. So there are other functions also there for creating a NumPy array. I said you cannot create a empty array by using array function. But my program required to create which array? Empty array. We cannot create an empty array using which function? Array function. But my application required to create which array? Empty array. Then use which function here? Empty function. This function returns what here? Empty array. Now, what is the syntax of this? Empty. It followed by the shape and it followed by what? Data type. So you need to define the data type. I mean, what is the default data type it takes? Float. What is the default data type it takes here? Float. So float is a default data type. Float is a default data type. Okay, float is a default data type. Okay, used by this. Okay, just try to understand this. Yes. So what is the default data type it uses? Is a float here, right? Okay. So empty is there. Now this function returns what here? Empty array, right? So empty means it doesn't mean that you cannot create an array empty. Empty means without defining values. You don't give any values. Okay, you don't give any values, but what will happen if I create an empty array? Your array is created with, suppose I'm saying A. So np dot empty is there. I just write np dot what is it here? Empty. So but empty, you cannot create an empty array without defining what? Shape. You cannot create an empty array without defining what here? Shape, right? So once you run this, now it is given one error. What is that error here? Missing required argument. What is that argument missing? Shape. So I have to create an empty array by defining which one here? Shape. I'm just writing a shape equal to, now you have to define the number of rows and columns. So I just write here 5. 5 comma is represented as tuple, right? So this is single dimensional array or not? Yes. But what will happen when I print A? Is it arrays printed with some values or not? Yes. Is it these values are known values or unknown values? Unknown values. The same thing will happen in C also. You declare variable, like suppose if you are working with the C language, you'll say integer A. If you say integer A and if you print by saying printf percentage D, if you say printf percentage D, and if you print A value, are you given any value to A? No. But what will happen when you print a value of A? Will it print a value of A as a known value or unknown value? Unknown value. Unknown value, it will get what? Unknown value. Sometimes you call this unknown values as which values? Garbage values. We'll call this as unknown values of the same thing is called which one? Garbage values. So why? Because so the memory is a collection of bytes. So memory is a collection of bytes here and not initialized because this is not a dynamic. Arrays are not dynamic. It is what? Static. And static is static memory. Okay, static memory is there. Static memory is not initialized memory. It is what? Uninitialized. Static memory is not initialized. It is what here? Uninitialized. But dynamic memory is initialized. So generally static memory is called as which one? Stack. And dynamic memory is called as which one? Heap. So generally objects are created in what here? Heap. But when it comes to this array, right? Arrays are static, fixed in size, or dynamic, fixed. Okay, it means there is some memories allocating here. There is some memories reserving here. There is some memories reserved for how many values here? 5 values. Space is reserved, but the space is initialized or uninitialized? Uninitialized. It is not initialized. This location doesn't have any value, right? This is not initialized. This is not initialized here. Okay. So what this location is having is a known value or unknown value? Unknown value. This is not a known value. This is which value? Unknown. But if it is dynamic, it is initialized. If it is a static, it is not initialized. So what is a value held by this particular location? Garbage value. Same thing. Same thing. What you are doing in which language? C language. Ring or not? Just try to understand this. Now these values are known values or unknown values? Unknown values. You cannot say that again you'll get the same values if you run this code. See, you cannot say that again you'll get the same values when you run this code, right? You may not get the same values when you run this code. Suppose if I run this code number of times, if I run this code, now you may not get the same values I'm saying. When you open next time and run this, you may not get the same values. Okay. Suppose I'll try to define the data type. Now I define the data type by saying np.integer 8. So what will happen now? Suppose I said empty, but I take integer 8. Now the values are filled with what? Ones. But don't think that it is filled with what? Ones. It is not ones. Actually, it is not one. It is garbage only. Why it is displaying one? Why it is displaying? Suppose this is 1.69. This is 1.89. 1.69, 1.89. So then it should take only which part? Integer part. That is what I'm saying. It doesn't display always the same values. I'm trying to say, what is that? Data or type equal to np.integer. How many bytes I'm taking? 8 bits. 8 bits is nothing but 1 byte. What is the values taken here? 1, 1, 1. Okay. Yes, but these values are known values are unknown. Unknown values. These values are not known values. So don't think that it will take one only. See here. I change the size. Integer 8 to integer 16. What is the values given here? Some 0, 0, 165. Okay. Yes. So empty array is nothing but creating an array without giving input array. What is empty array is nothing but creating an array without giving what? Input array. So you fill the values here. Okay. What you do? You fill the values in this. Okay. You fill the values, but rather than giving the source as what? List, rather than loading the data from list, rather than loading the data from tuple, okay, I try to give the inputs by just giving, suppose a of 0 equal to 10, a of 1 equal to what is it? 20. So this first value gets stored in this location. Now who is trying to fill the data? You are trying to fill the data or not? Yes. So can I input the values at runtime? Yes. So I can give for i in range of how many values are there? 5 values are there. For I in range of 5, how many values are there? 5 values. Now a of I equal to integer of input. Input enter any value. Enter any value. Now this is storing values at what? Runtime. Updating the values. What you're doing? Are you replacing the values or not? Yes. Now you try to input enter values, some 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50. Now, but initially your array is what? Empty. But are you replace these values with your own values or not? Yes. But array is fixed in size. But are you change the size of the array or replace the values? Replace the value, because your array is created with some empty array or not. Yes, but I don't want with some garbage values, but I want to fill with what? Some zeros. I want to create an array by filling with what? Here zeros. So for that there is a function called which one? Zeros. And this function return array with zero filled values. This function return array with what? Here zero filled values. So for that you are using a function called what? Zeros. But empty, will it fill with the zeros or garbage values? Garbage values. Empty is there, but empty doesn't fill with the okay, empty doesn't fill with the zeros, but empty fill with what? Some garbage values. But I don't want to fill with the garbage values, but I want to fill with the zeros. I want to fill with the one. Okay, I want to fill with my own values. So that can be done by using different functions, right? We'll discuss that more on this, like NumPy functions, but in the next class. Tomorrow we'll see. And tomorrow we'll have the class at 9 o'clock. Only one day. Tomorrow only one day. We'll have the class at 9 o'clock. Okay. But next class 11 only. But tomorrow only one day, 9 o'clock we'll have the class. Okay. Only one day. एक दिन ही है यार. एक दिन 9 o'clock बाद में 11 बजे. Okay. But tomorrow one day you'll have the class.